What's going on, everybody? Jared Sandler here, welcoming you in to another episode of the Just a Sec Conversation. This is episode 59 with the head coach of the Texas Legends, the NBA G League affiliate of the Dallas Mavericks, George Galanopolous. I met George a few years ago when I was broadcasting Legends games on Fox Sports Southwest, when George was simply an assistant coach for then head coach Bob McKinnon. George was in that role for a year. He then went to work in the video room for the Dallas Mavericks, and then at a young age got the chance to lead the Texas Legends and was likely leading them towards a postseason berth before COVID shut down the season. George is someone who's really busted his tail. He's led the Ugandan national team in some international tournaments. We discussed that experience and more. He is someone whose name you will want to remember is a future coaching star in the NBA ranks. But the Legends are certainly lucky and thankful to have him right now. As always, would really appreciate it if you would consider subscribing, liking, commenting, or just sharing this link with people who you think might be interested in tuning into this conversation. But without further ado, here we go. Episode 59 of the Just a Sec Conversation with the head coach of the Texas Legends, George Galanopolous. All right, George, so I like to ask this to everyone. What were you like as a child? What was young George like? You know, personality, interests, hobbies, whatever stands out to you. How would you describe what a young George Galanopolous was like?
Wow. I got to go off what my mom and my dad like to talk about as far as how I was as a kid. Relatively outgoing, at least for a young kid. Loved sports, was really, really competitive, almost to a fault. Was prone to throwing a temper tantrum when I was younger if I lost in a board game to my siblings or, you know, a driveway basketball game or something like that. So, yeah, outgoing, competitive. Nice kid, I think, for the most part. You know, my mom might have some mixed feelings about that, but yeah, I would say just outgoing, competitive, you know, loved sports, loved being around my siblings, you know, grew up with older sister, younger brother. So there was a lot of in-house love-hate relationships going on there for sure.
And you grew up in the Chicago area, right?
Yeah, Buffalo Grove, which is a suburb about 40 minutes north of the city.
Okay, so what drew you to sports when you were growing up?
I mean, my dad loved, you know, played sports and watched sports growing up. You know, was a huge Chicago sports fan. So inherently, you know, we grew up loving the Cubs and the Bears and the Bulls and, you know, the Blackhawks even. So my dad, from the time I was, you know, old enough to remember, was taking me to sporting events and, you know, got me a basketball hoop and threw it on the driveway when I was about 5 or 6 years old that I fell in love with, and just was playing sports from, you know, for as long as I can remember. So I think it really stemmed from my dad, you know, loving sports and just kind of getting us involved in a lot of different sports and just seeing kind of what stuck. So that's kind of what started my love for that. Was basketball a love at first sight type of thing for you? To a degree it was. Obviously at that age, you know, you don't really know what love at first sight is, but, you know, I remember, like I said, I was either 5 or 6 years old that, you know, for my birthday, my dad had somebody put a basketball hoop in our driveway, and I thought it was like the coolest thing ever. You know, I was playing so much on it that he realized he had to install a light on our house that projected onto the driveway so that I could play at night because I was playing so much when I was younger. So I guess you could say to a degree it was love at first sight. You know, baseball was a passion of mine as well growing up. You know, those were the two main sports that I played, but basketball for sure. I mean, when he put that basketball hoop up, you know, for my birthday, it was something that, you know, I fell in love with really early and never stopped.
Did it help that you grew up in an area and in a time in which basketball was so big because of Michael Jordan and the Bulls? Did that help draw you any closer to the sport, or what was your, I guess, experience like growing up as a Bulls fan as it pertained to your love of basketball?
Yeah, it had a huge impact. You know, my my parents were huge Bulls fans. Obviously, those championships in the 90s, I was still young, so I just have vague memories of the second three-peat. But, when I talked to my parents about it, they were watching Bulls games every night that they were on. My dad would come home from work and my mom would have a glass of wine and have the Bulls on a random Tuesday night in the middle of January. Like, they had such a huge impact on, the culture and just the people of Chicago. And I grew up around that. I grew up with a big Michael Jordan poster in my room and Scottie Pippen all over and jerseys and championship videos that they made and banners. Like, I was a huge Bulls fan from the moment I was born. And there was a huge impact on that, and going to the games and, even going to the games, I my love grew for other players that I saw as well. One of my first Bulls games, I saw Kevin Garnett play. And I fell in love with Kevin Garnett and Stephon Marbury when I was a little kid, as well as the Bulls. So I just became a huge basketball fan, a huge NBA fan in particular, as growing up with the Bulls and going to games and just seeing what an impact that they had on people, and not only the community of ours and Chicagoland area, but just the world in general.
Sidebar, favorite deep dish spot?
Oof. I'd probably have to go Lou Malnati's, but Giordano's is a close second.
Okay. I just had to make sure I got that one in there. There really wasn't, we're not getting into a deep pizza conversation at any point, so I had to somehow throw that in there.
It's one of those, man. Like, if I go eat Giordano's right now, I'd probably pick Giordano's. And when I go pick Lou Malnati's, I think it's Lou Malnati's. So they're right there. They're 1A and 1B.
At what point, George, did you decide or maybe realize that coaching would be of interest to you? Was it something when you were growing up, or was it not something until you were totally done playing?
Yeah, so I played for my high school my sophomore year, and I didn't really get much playing time. I was kind of like a seventh, eighth man. And then, we were so guard heavy at that point in our program, went to school with a lot of kids, and we had a really good team that I ended up not playing the next 2 years in high school for my high school, but I ended up playing a lot of pickup, playing at the local, YMCA. I started playing a lot in local park district leagues. I just started playing as much as possible because I still loved it. I just didn't see as much of an opportunity for the high school team, and I got a lot better. And when I got better just playing on my own those next couple of years, I realized I didn't really have much of a future playing, or at least I didn't think so. But I really loved the game, obviously, and I got in touch with a guy by the name of Steve Pratt, who's still a longtime friend and mentor. He runs a basketball training AAU academy in Chicago, still called Full Package Athletics, and he gave me an opportunity to coach full package and just do individual lessons with kids and whatnot, and coach 5th and 6th grade AAU. And at first I didn't know what I was getting myself into, but I absolutely loved it. I loved the connection with the kids and helping players get better. And I really felt comfortable doing it. And I found my voice and, a certain comfort level that, I guess a lot of people say, go find your passion. I was really passionate about it. And, I'll never forget the first lesson that I gave to, individual lesson I gave to a young kid. I think he was, maybe 11, 12 years old, and he couldn't do a left-handed layup. And I remember for 45 minutes with his parents watching, I worked on left-handed layups with him, and he couldn't get it. And I was just continuing to be encouraging. And, he was getting super frustrated. And by the end of the 45 minutes, he was able to get it down. He went off his right foot, up with his left hand. He made it. And just the pure joy on this kid's face that he felt from being able to work at it for 45 straight minutes and finally get it, and seeing the way his parents reacted as well. It was a really, really cool feeling, and I'll never forget that. That was the moment, I think, when I did that lesson, and that was the result of it after the 45 minutes. I left that gym thinking to myself, I love this, and this is something I could see myself doing. And then it kind of just had a domino effect from there, where I was in love with the NBA at the time, and it was around that time that Lawrence Frank actually was, I think he came onto the scene with the Nets as an interim head coach. And, he doesn't necessarily look the part as a former NBA guy and whatnot. And, I kind of did some research on him and saw that he didn't have a playing background. He was a manager at IU. He, worked his way up from assistant coach in college to, the NBA. And, there was proof that somebody like me who didn't have a strong playing background could do this and could make it work. And, call me young and dumb or naive at the time, but, after seeing that example, to me, it was kind of like, well, why can't I do that? I'll go be a manager at, a school, or I'll go be an intern. And it was around that time that it was Lawrence Frank. And then as the years went on, more and more guys like the Spoelstras of the world, the Mike Browns, the Frank Vogels, all these guys came up through the video room and as interns. And then it really paved the way for, a lot of people like myself coming up in the industry.
So what was I guess, first of all, do you have a relationship with Lawrence Frank? How would you describe your relationship if you do have one with him?
I don't know Lawrence Frank personally. I've never met him. If I did meet him personally, if it was appropriate timing, I would let him know that, he was an inspiration to me at the time. Just seeing that somebody without a playing background could work their way to that position. He just showed guys like me that it was possible. And then it showed guys that, came after him that it was possible as well. So I don't personally have a relationship with him, but, to me, he means a lot in the sense that I'll never forget seeing him on TV when I was in high school. And I was trying to figure out myself how I would get into the coaching world. I knew I wanted to coach in the NBA when I was about 17 years old. I was coaching AAU. I didn't know how I would do it. And he was kind of like the model, the example, where I looked at it and I said, oh, well, it's possible. I'll figure it out and do my research on how these guys do it and figure out how to go from here.
All right, so you go to Indiana. There's obviously a pretty storied basketball program there. What was that next job once you were done with college?
So once I was done with college, I ended up getting an internship at Attack Athletics, working for Tim Grover and Mike Procopio. And it's no longer there, Attack, but they were training some high profile athletes at the time, and Tim Grover's obviously Michael Jordan's trainer, and Kobe Bryant worked with a lot of pros. So that was unbelievable learning under him and Mike Procopio. Obviously, Mike Procopio, brought me to Dallas about 4 or 5 years later. Not to get too ahead of ourselves, but that was my first internship, and it was pretty cool because it was one of my first experiences working with professional athletes and seeing how those individual workouts go down in the summertime and understanding what it's like to work with those players. And they also did draft workouts, weight room workouts. So there was, it was an incredible learning experience for me as a youngster at 22 years old, just to be there for even a few months. And then after that, I got a job as a basketball operations intern with the Bakersfield Jam, who are now the Northern Arizona Suns. So they were out of Bakersfield, California. I got an internship there. It was actually Steve Pratt, the guy I mentioned before, was a longtime mentor and friend of mine that helped me with my first coaching job, who helped get me that opportunity with his buddy who coached. Will Voigt is the name of Bakersfield. And so I went out there as an intern and then was there for the next 3 years as a player development coach and then an assistant coach my final year.
So how old were you that first year with Bakersfield?
I was 22.
Okay.
I had just graduated college that previous spring.
So how did you, I guess that first year, what were your responsibilities and how did your responsibilities evolve over those 3 years?
Yeah, so my responsibilities at first are similar to what basketball ops interns do now. I was doing everything from running the clock at practice to wiping up the sweat when players would fall down, to cleaning the floor before practice, laundry, driving the team van. I was lucky enough to be on the bench during the games, taking stats and helping the coaching staff out, which was an incredible experience. I'd help the coaching staff with any video edits that they needed, any scouting duties in particular to help them out. You wear a lot of different hats in that position. So really what catapulted me to, player development coach position the next year with them was when the team would go on the road. I wasn't traveling at the time. So we had a player in particular, one or two players that, if they were inactive or they were injured, they would stay back and they would work out. And I was one of the only people, that didn't travel and was staying back. So it was my responsibility to work those guys out when the team was on the road. And I would also get in the gym with guys at night because we didn't have a player development coach, and our assistant coaches were married, they had families. So I was the one that would go in at night and help these guys work out. So getting on the court with those guys individually, building those relationships, reporting back to the coach the workouts that they were doing. And, I guess he thought I was doing a good enough job, saw some improvement in the guys, and saw that I was building a good rapport with the players as well, that they wanted to hire me back the next year. So, some of the best advice that I got from Mike Procopio when I was working at Attack before I took this job as an intern was, you can be the hardest worker. You can mop the floor. You could be willing to do any task that they give you and be really, really good at those things. But the way that you, catapult your career to where you want to go and how you get to the next job and how you get hired and get to the next step is by adding value to yourself. So that was some of the best advice I ever got, especially as a young kid, coming up in this business. Was it's important to add value to yourself. It's important to show, what you can do and what you can offer the team and the organization that makes you valuable, so that they would want to keep you there. And it was just an opportunity that organically presented itself, that I was one of the only people staying back and not traveling, and decided to work out the players, and thankfully they saw some value in me in doing that, because they didn't have that position of somebody to just really get in the gym any time of the day or night and help out. So that was a great opportunity for me, for sure.
How did you overcome age at that stage, and without necessarily a resume or skins on the wall, develop the trust of these players and prove to them that not only are you their age, or maybe in a lot of cases younger, and you don't have coaching skins on the wall, but you don't have playing skins on the wall. So how did you overcome that? And not to yourself. I mean, I think that you had already kind of proven to yourself with the examples that you shared that you were capable of doing it, but you also need to get the players to buy in. How did you go about that? And was that a challenge, or was that something that just kind of happened naturally?
Yeah, it's somewhat of a challenge, but I didn't really, I'll be honest with you, I didn't really look at it that way. I loved coaching so much, and I loved being on the court, and I loved the game so much that I didn't approach it as, how am I going to earn their respect? This is going to be really, really difficult. Like, how am I going to go about getting the respect of these guys and show them what I know? And I didn't stress about that. Really, because I enjoyed it so much, I just made myself available to these guys whenever they wanted to get in the gym. And I felt at the time I worked really hard just to help these guys. When I would rebound for them, I'd make sure that I was sprinting for rebounds and trying to get them as many shots as possible. I would make game-like passes. I just really, to myself, broke it down to, I'm just going to work really hard. I'm going to work hard. I'm going to try to do the right things. And I'm just going to show these guys that I'm there for them. And I think that over time, you add the learning, the constant learning of the game and different nuances and terminology. And you add a lot of that to, a work ethic and an outlook on things. And usually the sky's the limit, in my opinion. That's what I've seen work over the years. And I've been really lucky to have really good mentors. Will Voigt was a great coach over there in Bakersfield, currently, coaching in Germany, and the Angolan national team head coach. And he helped me a lot. He helped mentor me a lot and teach me not only the nuances of the game, but, how to be a pro, how to approach your job in a professional manner. So it was good. But, my approach was just be a good guy, do things for the right reasons. When guys call you, answer. If they want to get in the gym with them, help them out, bust your ass, and just do the best you can. And I think the players, no matter who they are, I think respect that. They respect when you're available and when you're there for them, and they can trust you. And that's all I did. I just tried to be myself, and I think the byproduct was just good relationships and building trust. And then over time, it became more clear to me as to how to earn that respect, so that I can pass that along to other coaches and other generations.
All right, so you and I met, George, when you were working with the Texas Legends, and then you had, I guess, two jobs maybe concurrently to some degree after that. One working with the Dallas Mavericks. We'll get into that in a second, but you mentioned Will Voigt coaching the Angolan national team. Well, you coach the Ugandan national team. And as far as I knew then, and still to this day, as far as I know, you are not any percentage Ugandan. Maybe now you are after this experience, but how did that all come about, and what was that experience like, from the opportunity to be a head coach to the challenges of coaching in a country where you know nothing about the culture, the way of life, and it's also not a country with a rich basketball history?
Yeah, it was a challenge for sure in a lot more ways than I even anticipated. You know, it was actually it was Bob McKinnon, the old coach for Legends when I was an assistant, who helped me get that job. You know, they had reached out to him, management for the Uganda Basketball Federation. They had reached out to him to coach, and I think he was getting hip surgery that summer. He couldn't do it, and he told them, I got an assistant coach that I think would be, capable of doing it. And thankfully he saw that in me to be able to do it. I'm really grateful for that to this day. And, when he came to me with that and said, is this something you would want to do? I didn't know much about Uganda at all. I didn't know where in Africa it was. I just knew it was a country in Africa. And just at that time, being young, single, able to travel wherever you wanted, for this job, I just said, yeah, sure. Why not? So I went out there and it was tough. It's a challenge. I mean, our first training camp was in Alexandria, Egypt. And, the drive from Cairo to Alexandria, we're driving on this little bus, me and two players that traveled from the States that were part Ugandan. And we get on this bus that I'm pretty sure, at the time was about to break down on the side of the road. And, it's super hot. There's barely any air conditioning in the car. And we're driving for 3.5 hours from Alexandria to Cairo. And or from Cairo to Alexandria, and the first gym that we go to where we have training camp is in the middle of Alexandria somewhere. I still to this day never know where it was. It was the worst gym I've ever been in my entire life. Like it was broken windows, there were no lights. The floor was wood, but it was like all cracked and beat up, and tiles were pulled up, and there was so much dust and sand on the floor that we were trying to do defensive pick and roll shell drill with these guys sliding and, shifting all over the place, and guys were slipping everywhere. And I'm just thinking to myself at that time, like, how the hell are we going to win any games? Like, how are we going to do this? But it just was what it was. It was a situation, we tried to adapt. We did the best we could. And, one thing I took for granted too was the language barrier. So they speak a number of languages. There's a lot of tribes over there. There's also the native Ugandan language, but they do speak English. It is a secondary language of theirs. And the thing I took for granted was that they'd be able to understand everything I said just because I speak English. But, I can speak relatively fast sometimes when I get going, when I'm coaching, and we have different terminology basketball wise. So one guy didn't even know what crash the boards meant. That's a general term here in America, but I had to explain that it was offensive rebounding. And I'm thinking to myself, if he didn't understand crash the boards, how many of these guys don't understand if I use some terminology that I'm so used to using in the States? So that was a real big challenge. And it's not, I need to educate these guys. Like, it's just different. It's different cultures. It's different basketball cultures, different basketball terminology. So it took me really self-reflecting and taking a step back. And instead of just showing them how much I know coming from the States and coming from the level that I was coaching at, it was really taking a step back and working with them to come up with the best solutions to these, not necessarily problems, but just solutions to these issues, communication-wise, and how we were going to best work together to make this thing work. And it helped me personally tremendously. I mean, those guys opened my eyes to so many blind spots that I had as a coach, and it just made my communication that much better. It made me appreciate that culture a lot more. It offered me an opportunity to travel not only all over Africa, all over the world. I had the opportunity to go to Dubai for a few days. We were in Senegal, Nigeria, been to Uganda before, and also, Alexandria, Egypt, Cairo. It offered an unbelievable opportunity to see the world that I never would have anticipated. When I was 17, 18 years old, I just figured, I'll follow Lawrence Frank's path, just go straight from the bottom up through the college and NBA ranks. And it's really been a blessing. It has, for sure. And the amount of people that you meet across different cultures throughout the world is something that's really, really cool. And it's gratifying as long as you have, the right outlook going into it.
What was your, not basketball related, what was your, because I know next to nothing about Uganda, what was your favorite part of Ugandan culture or something that you got to experience while you were in Uganda?
They're really, really nice people. That's one thing that I really appreciate about them, is that when I got the opportunity, obviously the team was very nice and I met them, but I got an opportunity finally to go to Uganda, a couple of years after I'd gotten the job, because we were doing training camp and playing our games in other places, in other remote places besides Uganda. So the moment that I got to go to Uganda, I really, really appreciated just the people there. They were super nice. They were welcoming. The food is great. It's just a very, very fun culture. They got great music. They like to have fun. There's really not many better things that I could say about the people there. And that's the one thing that I remember about my experience, is that when I got to go to Uganda, they were just very, very appreciative, very welcoming, very warm. And it's something that I appreciate to this day. I've had a great time when I've gone back there, and I look forward, once all of this stuff, it plays out, hopefully for the better, that I'll be able to fly over there and see everybody again.
All right, so you also, around the same time, were working with the Mavericks. Now, the Texas Legends, when you first worked as an assistant coach, were connected to the Mavericks, but Mark Cuban was not involved from an ownership standpoint like he is now. And I think the connection between the Legends and the Mavericks, though it existed then, is much stronger now. But you went from the Legends then to the Mavericks. What was your role and your responsibilities, and what did you kind of get out of what you did with the Mavericks?
Yeah, the Mavericks was a great opportunity. It just kind of happened organically, where there was a spot open in the video room, and, it was a full-time spot. I had not worked for an NBA team full-time at that point. And, thankfully from my internship year there in 2015-16, I still had maintained some relationships, and, they wanted to retain me in that role in the video room. And it's something that I'm really grateful for. It was an unbelievable opportunity. I was able to cultivate a lot of strong relationships with the coaches there over a span of 2 years. And it was an unbelievable learning experience. I mean, to be in an NBA office every single day, being involved in those conversations and different projects and watching video and film and breaking it down with the coaches, it was incredible. And, what I think prepared me most for that position specifically is not necessarily the video aspect nearly as much as the approach and the attitude in it. So, as an assistant video coordinator previously, I was, I'd been an intern for the Mavs. I'd been a coach. I'd been an assistant coach for 3 years at that time, 2 with Bakersfield and then 1 with the Legends. So I had a good understanding, I felt at that time, of what an assistant coach would want in preparation for each and every game and each and every practice. And instead of taking that position and thinking, oh, well, I'm above this because I've been a coach, so I'm just going to try to find a way to get to be a coach from this position, I just took it as, hey, I've had really, really great experiences, and I've been lucky enough to have those early on in my career of being a coach and having more responsibility, that now I'm in more of a support role. And I got to look to help these guys. What would I want as an assistant coach? What did I learn about the things that helped me as an assistant coach in previous years that I can now pass on and help this coaching staff? And it's on a different scale. The NBA obviously is of higher magnitude than the G League, especially at the time with Bakersfield. But it was similar concepts nonetheless of, I knew I just tried to look at what the assistant coach needed on a day-to-day basis and what I could take off his plate. And that's just the way that, I operated while I was there, and the experiences I had before that is what I think primed me for that position.
George, you mentioned the video room. I know what that is. Obviously you do, but for people who might not, when you say you worked in the video room, what all does that entail?
Anything involved with the day-to-day video needs of the staff, the team and the organization. During the season, it's a lot of video edits for individual coaches, whether they have the scout for that upcoming game, whether they're watching film with a player. A coach could walk in and say, "Hey, could I have Jalen Brunson's last 10 pick and rolls?" And that's my job to go in as long as they ask and find them for them and clip them up and make sure that I give something to him that he can show to Jalen. So they've got so much work as assistant coaches, and they're so busy. Plus, they all got families and whatnot. It's a lot. So anything that we could do to take off their plate, is really what our job is. So any day-to-day video needs, obviously in the off season, there's the draft. So we would do draft videos and put together film of the top prospects and everybody in the draft, so that's accessible to everybody in the organization. We would call it chop, quote unquote, cut up. We would cut up the video for upcoming opponents as well. So, if we were playing the Bulls on a Monday and we were going to play the Lakers on a Wednesday and the Lakers were playing that night that we played the Bulls, I'm not watching our game against the Bulls. I'm actually in the back in the video room cutting up the game that the Lakers just played, so that once our game is over, everybody on the staff will be able to watch the Lakers game in preparation for Wednesday's game in our video software program. So there's a lot that's involved, but again, if I were to sum it up, it's just the day-to-day video needs of the team, the staff, and the organization.
All right, so from there, you get the job of the Texas Legends. You just finished your first year as a head coach in the G League. Unfortunately, it seemed like you were leading a team to the playoffs, but that season was cut short because of all the COVID-19 impact in the sports world. But what was that first season for you like as a head coach here in the G League?
It was nothing short of an incredible experience. Both, for me personally, I couldn't have asked for a better situation. The people that we had in that building, from the staff, to management, to the players that we had really, really good people around every day. And, a lot of people talk about culture. They talk about building the right environment and this, that, and the other. You could do that all you want, but culture starts with people. And the people that we had in the building, starting with Al Whitley and Malcolm Farmer and everybody with the Mavs, it's a trickle-down effect. And the staff that we had, there was only one change on staff because somebody, Zach Chu got a job with the Mavericks. So it was great for him to get the call up, and then a buddy of mine, Nelson Taroba, gets hired. And there were no other changes. Everybody that was there that I either was familiar with, I had worked with, or knew was just a great person. They were good people. It was loyalty and integrity and helping the players over personal ambition. And that's something that you really appreciate as a coach. Let's just do the right things. Let's have the best interests of the players at heart, and let's bring in really, really good people that were the players. And, the talent and the wins and everything else will kind of take care of itself. And that's what you saw. The result as a 24-19 record, I think, was just an example of the people that we had in the building. And what a great job, our management did at bringing in the right players and the players, gelling and having really, really good chemistry and being a really cohesive unit throughout the year, which is so much more than you could ask for with a G League team with so much roster movement. So, I learned a lot personally, obviously, but the thing that I can appreciate most is just the relationships that, I got to build with everybody and kind of the joyful environment that we had every day, even after losses. Even after bad losses or a 2-3 game winning streak, the spirit of the team, I don't think ever wavered. And I think that's really a true testament to, the chemistry that our guys had and the strength of, our assistant coaches and the rest of the staff as well.
So you mentioned earlier assessing your performance, and as a player, there's statistics that can help tell a big part of the story. As a coach, how do you go back and assess your job over the course of the season? What methods do you use, and what are the takeaways that you tend to look for?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, it's really important as a coach that you have a high level of self-awareness. So, you could be 25-5, 30 games in, and if you just think that the way that you're coaching reflects the 25-5 record or vice versa, that's wrong. There are so many things that that go on in huddles, in timeouts, in practices that you need to constantly be self-evaluating. And there were a lot of times where we'd leave a timeout or something like that, and I thought to myself, man, I should have been better at that. Like, that wasn't my best effort. Or, I need to be more prepared for that next time, or I need to be more prepared for this. You watch film of the games that you won and lost. You watch special situations and the quarters. You reflect on all of these things that happen. And I think it takes a high level of self-awareness to look at those things objectively and try to figure out where you could be better regardless of the result. For me, judging the job that I did and the staff, I think first and foremost is looking at, did we help the players get better? Did we create an environment that was conducive to learning and developing? And did these guys get better? And I think we could look at a lot of guys, almost all of our guys, and say, yeah, these guys got better over the span of the year. And that's what we care about. We care about approaching our job with a genuine care, with integrity, with the best interests of the players at heart, first and foremost. And with all the roster turnover that happens, you just have to navigate that. You have to navigate that as a staff. You need to navigate that with the core group of players that you have there throughout the year. And at the end of the day, the result is the record. And I don't think, especially in the G League, the record is always a direct reflection of what went on. But I think our record could say that we had the players in place, that they created an environment, and our staff, I think, did a nice job on a day-to-day basis of bringing a positive energy to that environment that created one that was conducive to learning and getting better and wanting to get better. And at the end of the year, the results were what they were. But I see it as a successful year because not only guys got better, not just because we won, but we enjoyed it. And I think we enjoyed it regardless of the record. Winning helps, but I also like to think that we manifested a lot of those wins because of our approach and the guys that we had in that locker room.
Well, there you go. That's episode 59 of the Just a Sec conversation. Thanks so much for tuning in. Again, feel free to browse the channel to take a peek at the other 58 conversations we've released, and certainly be on the lookout for the next batch of conversations. We've got a whole lot more coming your way in the Just a Sec series, as well as other videos and pieces of content on this channel. Would really appreciate if you'd consider subscribing, liking, commenting, sharing. Any and all of the above would certainly be appreciated. But until then, stay safe, be healthy. We'll talk to you later.